Alrighty, Champions League is back, and the postponed Premier League.
You'll get there, buddy. You
I'll
got there.
get there. A lot of P's today. Um, got a lot of stuff to recap, and actually another P, Mr. Potter, arriving in Chelsea.
Hey,
So yeah, play that tune, son.
that's all you get.
Alrighty, now Champions League is back, and there was actually quite a few exciting occurrences. All right, how about
You're trying to what do you call it? What do you call it? Buff up our word count.
yeah, bro? I've been doing, I've been doing,
Exciting encounters.
I've been doing vocabulary exercises.
Um,
No, like a lot of a lot of upsets, a lot
mm,
of strange results, even games where the scoreline is pretty much a landslide, like Madrid versus Celtic, is
mm,
actually a lot closer than what the scoreline suggests. So a lot
and
of stuff
Hazard's
like that
doing
going on.
good things too.
Exactly. So look, let's start at the elephant in the room, which is Liverpool versus Napoli. Uh, it's a big elephant.
Oh,
4-1 at the Diego Armando Maradona Stadium. Not exactly a good start for Liverpool. What do you make of it?
quite interesting. They went down really quick. Like it was 3
Yeah, they
0 in
did.
the first half.
Yep.
Um, Look, the problems we talked about earlier. I guess the problems we've been talking about with Liverpool in the league so far have persisted through into this game as well. The midfield
Yep.
was poor. That right side with Gomez and Trent Alexander.
Suicide.
Uh, it's abject to say. Look, I understand Gomez because he hasn't been obviously playing regularly. He hasn't been a first team in the first team consistently. He's been in and out, rotated, which is fine. I can kind of understand. And he's not a guy to play with the ball. He's just not
Yeah.
someone that can, you know, play a pass or he's someone you feel comfortable with on the ball. But to leave a gap on that side, and Trent is probably, I'd probably say since the final
Mm.
in against Madrid last season, I think this is probably one of his worst performances since then.
Yeah.
The I can't remember if it was the second or the third goal where the player chips it over him or kind of flicks it over his leg and he runs by him and Trent kind of
Yeah.
just goes, "Oh, yep, there you go, there he goes."
100%.
No
If
effort
you're
on the
talking if you're talking in isolation, like him individually as like a standout moment, that's definitely one of them, or the
mm,
one, because that was the
kind of
worst
sums
of
up
all
the
of
game.
them. That sums it up for him. But something that I think sums up the fact that it's a total defensive issue rather than just Trent, and obviously Trent's probably the biggest defender so far, but just even Van Dijk hasn't been himself, and I think Robbo's acquitted himself a little bit just because of his hustle, but overall the defensive schematic isn't working well, and that even comes down to what's in the midfield. So
Mm,
do you know that goal where there's that? I think I sent you the clip where there's that 1-2 in the box, and there's like literally 6 Liverpool defenders in the box, but they don't get a man on him. You know that one?
mm,
Okay, so
mhm,
just to break down the order from left back to right back, how it looks. Okay, in that goal, you've got Andy Robertson, right,
mhm,
closest to let's say we're on the touchline on near side. We've got Andy Robertson
mhm,
closest to us. Then you've got Van Dyke. Okay, so far everything makes sense. All right. Then it's
mhm,
Fabinho, right? Then it's Fabinho.
mhm.
Then it's James Milner. Then it's Trent Alexander-Arnold. Then it's Joe Gomez. Tell me that doesn't look scattered as hell. Like what's going? Who's where there? You've got you've got both center midfielders dropping in between the center back somehow. Not just both center midfielders, but also the right back. You've got three
Mm,
players have somehow managed to squeeze between the two center backs. If three of your own players can squeeze between your two center backs, what the fuck's going to happen on the other side? Like, you know what I mean? Like, then
yeah,
obviously there's
yeah.
going to be space for the opposition. So it just it sort of highlights how scattered the organizational structure is at the moment for Liverpool. Like,
Mm,
never mind you the individual lack of performance, from Salah, from Joe Gomez, from Trent Alexander-Arnold, from Van Dijk. Maybe there's little reasons you can pick apart why. For Mo Salah, man's played football for like 100 million days straight. It feels like, right? So it's it could be that, right? He's probably exhausted. So there's that
Yeah.
for Mohamed Salah. Um, Joe Gomez, as you said, he's never really had any full consistency in the lineup. James Milner is as old as Mohamed Salah has been playing football in a row, right? Like, then you've got Fabinho, who's let's say it, he's in the twilight of his career, right? So I get it in isolation. There's maybe some justification as to why players are underperforming, so to speak, but there isn't a justification for why your back line should, especially when you're essentially in a low block, because you've got all six of them in the box, why they're in that order. Like, that screams to me that they don't know what they're doing. They're not sure of what's going on, because if Joe Gomez is scattering across to the right back and you've got James Milner and Fabinho tucking in really deep, it's cramming in between the centre backs. You've got Trent Alexander-Arnold floating in the box like he's a false nine. He's a false right back. That's what he is. He's invented a position, right, where he hovers around where you think a right back would be, but he doesn't make any of the defensive impact a right back would, right? So explain that to me. There's a lot more going wrong, I think, than just the players individually underperforming, which I think is almost more scary, because I mean that sort of seems to me like Klopp's not lost it, but like, he said they need to reinvent themselves after the game. So clearly he's not happy with what they're executing.
Yeah, I just think they don't have the defensive intensity anymore, like they usually do. Like they were usually organized, and very good at pressing and snuffing out, chances at the back. Especially when they went on that run late last season. Well, I guess from the middle to the end, where they
Yeah,
strung off 11 wins in a row, whatever it was.
yeah,
It just seems like some sort of issue is there. Whether it's
yeah.
something that Klopp can fix. Is it with something with Klopp? We don't know. But yeah, we at least we're not hearing too many rumors of discontent, I guess.
Yeah.
It's
And
not
they,
like
and, they
it's
re- and there really shouldn't be, because it's
mm,
it's rare for them that they've started this badly. They did really, really well to close out the last season. I
mm,
think we're being a little unfair to a team like this that has had a lot of injuries, and they've played so
yeah,
much football deep into a lot of. They almost had the quadruple last season. That means they played
mm,
deep into four competitions, right?
mm,
And if a team
mm,
that's played deep into four competitions also has injuries, then you're going to get a lot of fatigued legs out there, right?
for sure,
So that
for
sort
sure.
of that sort of explains a little bit why there's a lack of intensity, right? That makes
Mm,
sense, right? But again, what doesn't make sense is seeing them scattered and out of position how they are. What doesn't make sense is watching Mohamed Salah have to pick the ball up constantly, surrounded by three or four players, because no Fabinho, James Milner can actually assist in them going forward, and cause a distraction for the defenders. So,
mm,
and then if you've got false nine Bobby Firmino starting, that means in a back line, like a back four, the only people you're really worried about is Luis Diaz and Mohamed Salah. You got four guys to deal with two fellas, right?
mm,
And then you've got two or three of your midfielders that can tuck in and help you, because they don't have to deal with Fabinho coming up. They don't have to deal with Milner doing anything. So they've got all the freedom in the world to come in and I get essentially double up on Mohamed Salah and Luis Diaz. And you know what?
mm,
You want to know a way that this is highlighted? Peep Luis Diaz's goals recently. This man is dribbling three or four people and shooting from outside the box.
mm,
Right? And it's in multiple goal losses. Right? That says to me that they're scoring those types of goals out of necessity. That's all that they're able to create, because you're not able to give the ball isolated to the wingers on the flanks, because none of your midfielders are able to be creative enough to either play an incisive pass or draw the opposition into them. So
mm.
I think there's a lot more to fix here than just be like, oh, well, if Mohamed Salah just played a Ballon d'Or level quality, they'd be fine. Or if Van
Yeah,
Dijk just turned into the Rolls Royce centre back he normally is, they'd be fine. No,
no,
it's
no.
a structural issue almost.
Yeah, and it kind of highlights. I guess it's easy to say now in hindsight, now that we've identified the issue, and they've thinned out there with injuries. But you'd have to think, like, why didn't Liverpool address their shortage at center? Sorry, in the center mid position during the window while it was open. Like, I understand you had to replace, Mane, and you brought in Darwin, and you did what you needed to do there, and you got the deal done. But I
Yeah.
don't understand why they didn't, you know, potentially bolster, maybe a signing or two, or in the middle.
I
Didn't
think
have to
you
be
know
hot
what
signings. That's the thing.
is the easy answer, just that had they not had issues like multiple injuries,
Mm,
Darwin getting red carded, then you kind of go, oh, it was fair to be conservative. They didn't need that extra guy. Maybe they don't start
mm,
red hot, but they're okay. You
mm.
know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
it's because it just so happened that the worst case scenario that's played out,
Yeah,
it's just made it even
potentially.
more obvious, you know?
Potentially.
It's
But
just because I'm with you. I personally, if you're a team of this size, right, and you've got a guy like Mohamed Salah who's only got another 2-3 years at most, right?
mm,
And he's like as good as he is, then you want to make sure that every season you've got as good a chance as everyone, right?
mm,
So
mm.
I'm still with you in that they should have reinforced, but I think they may have sort of fibbed themselves into understanding like, the only way it's a problem is if everyone gets injured. And lo and
Ye-
behold, that's what
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah, and I think even if they didn't all get injured, like if you really look at it, they've had this problem before. I think it was not the season that just went by. I think the one before, maybe the one before that. I think that was the year when Van Dijk was injured as well. Granted, they
Yeah.
had a lot of big injuries that season, but that's when they
Yep.
thinned out. And like if you look at their normal starting midfield, right? After that, it gets pretty wobbly even when everyone's fully fit. Curtis Good,
Yeah.
he's like, would you start him? Harvey Elliott, would you start him if there wasn't any injuries? I mean, Fabio, he's good, but he still needs time to bed into the club
Yeah.
and develop as a player. So he's not like a first team regular. Naby Keita, who struggled for consistent form and is injured oft as well. Oxlade Chamberlain, God knows when was the last time he kicked the ball.
Yeah.
Like I think they even with worst case scenario wasn't there, I think they could have looked at their midfield and thought, yeah, we should probably
Yeah.
get someone in, not last second like Arthur, and actually do
Yeah.
some proper scouting, recruiting, something like that, and bring someone in to help bolster that and maybe move someone on. Because obviously Naby Keita's got 1 year left on his deal; it's expiring at the end of this season, and I believe Ox is on the same page as him too in that front. So look, I
I'm with
think.
you, man. It's not. I reckon it's not a thing of just hindsight. I think
Mm,
it purely just was the right move, even at the time, to have
yeah,
brought in an extra body. But for some reason, they've talked themselves into not having to do
yeah,
it. And
yeah.
I would like to know exactly what that reason is. But I feel like, given Klopp's, remember how Klopp came out and was like, "You were wrong. you were right. I was
Mm,
wrong. We should have got a
mm,
midfielder," that sort of thing. It
mm,
sort of tells me that whatever the reason was relatively paper thin. You know what I mean? Like, I
mm,
don't think it
mm,
was a real stalwart thing. I think it was maybe not a push from Klopp. I think he was maybe happy with the boys he had, and then
mm,
therefore, they're like, well, there's no pressure from him. There's no pressure from us. We're gonna let it. We're gonna roll with this. We're gonna let it
yeah,
ride. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
Because the way he caved was as if he didn't really have a horse in the race. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
he didn't give a, because I feel like if he had a logical reason, he may have given it to deflect. Like, hey, this was my plan. I was wrong. It backfired. Not just straight up, you were right. I was wrong. Which
yeah, yeah.
seems like a cop out, but feels like it means that they probably didn't have a real reason to begin with.
Yeah, yeah. Because if you also look at the squad, they generally bolster a lot of them. Like if you think about it, they brought in Konate when they still have Matip, Joe Gomez,
Yeah.
VVD. I mean, Robbo's
Yeah.
still there. They brought in Simicast. The only
Yep.
place that you probably think is midfield and right back that they don't have a solid reserve. Even
Yep.
up front before Mane and Mane, sorry, even left, they always had rotational pieces. Now
Yeah.
they even have
Yota.
more
Yeah.
rotation up front where you can literally throw on 5 or 6 different players in those
Yeah.
positions to rotate up front to give you something new. So yeah, it's a bit interesting, but we'll see how it turns out. Obviously, it's easy to point out how bad someone is doing when they're at their worst. And they've shown before that they can turn around, and they are slow to start as well over the
Yeah.
last couple of seasons. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out and see what Klopp does to reinvent the side, as he said. But yeah, not a good performance. I didn't think they would look this bad in the Champions League. I thought that was I guess my thought going into the game. But yeah,
Yeah.
they just looked. I think they were exposed. Really, just can't. I think you'd hope this would be rock bottom, considering that they went down 3-0 very quickly in the first half. So hopefully it's a wake up call because these guys are playing well below um, the standard that they usually do.
Agreed. Now, to the other side of things, where they are definitely performing to their standard, Manchester City versus Sevilla. Now, I understand Sevilla. They've been essentially ransacked in the off season.
Mm.
A lot of their best players have moved on. Lots of chopping and changing. I think Lopetegui is on the hot seat now, so like a lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
instability at the
Mm.
club. So I understand like why they're in the situation that they're in, and like they're not the best version of themselves right now.
Yeah.
But even in saying that, we have to commend Man City on their performance. They played very, very well. Just the fact now that they've gone from a team that they had one way of scoring goals before, and now they've kept that while also adding this ridiculously fast-paced counter-attack ability now, when they can pick the ball up and zoom straight into the opponent's half really, really quickly, because they've got the quality of very direct passing from KDB and some playmaking ability from Phil Foden, and obviously the incredible running from Haaland. They're very, very scary opposition, and to me, so far they've proven to be by far the most informed team in Europe. And
Mm-hmm.
also, if you were to just ask me, like power rankings wise, who's got like the highest ceiling, who's got the highest potential for this season, I think it's Manchester City. If they figure all things out, they're going to be the team to beat for everyone in every competition. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They've got so many layers to their game, quality in all positions, and they started super super hot in the Champions League. I thought
Yeah.
they looked
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. 100%. It was a masterclass from City. They generally did. They ticked all the boxes.
Yep.
Haaland goal, Kevin De Bruyne playing the marionette in the middle.
It,
The left backs and right backs getting forward and scoring
yeah.
it was a typical dominant Man City win. I think they look. I was always a proponent of oh, they don't need a number nine. Their system is good enough because it keeps taking them far enough. But I think look the way the Haaland thing is going now, it looks great, and it looks like I'll be eating humble pie if they end
Yeah.
up winning the Champions League off the back of him. I'll be eating a truckload of humble pie. But this team it's it just looks crazy with Haaland. Like there's no other way to put it. I feel like that it's like they found a new lease on life. I don't know what it is. I think the only player that hasn't really kind of been blistering hot to start with is Foden, but that's not to
Yeah.
say he's been playing bad.
No,
Um,
no, not at all. I was actually
yeah.
going to mention this. This really has had the hallmarks of all of the great City performances of this season, down
Mm.
to the Phil Foden passing up an assist to Haaland. I mean,
There you go.
I feel
There
like
you go.
every game he has to at least ignore him on one or two
He's
passes.
got one
And
time, just one time.
just once, I reckon he could have doubled his assist total for the year so far had he just always been looking for Haaland. And I
Mm.
understand that you don't want players to do that. You don't want players to sort of always defer to the
Yeah,
goal
yeah.
scorer if they're in a good position. But I think when you've got a guy like Haaland and you're scoring as many goals as you can, right? You can always sort of have the luxury of I'm going to look for him first and then I'm going to shoot. You know,
Yeah,
even if it
yeah,
costs me a second or two, I'm gonna do it because we're winning most games by multiple goals anyways. Let's keep looking for this guy because I reckon Phil Foden his numbers could be ridiculous. And even so, he scored himself a goal. He played well this game.
hmm.
It's just I feel like the the, the real next level for Phil Foden will be if he understands his role within this team a little bit better, and he
Mhm.
starts playing in Haaland sort of more often. I feel like
Yeah,
I wouldn't say he's passing up options every time to Haaland, but there's a lot of times when they get into the box where I understand before there wasn't a center forward. So once you got into the box, you had all free pass to shoot, regardless of position. But I think now when you've got a guy like him, you got to always keep your head up,
yeah,
even if you're practically on the goal line, like he's been a couple times.
yeah.
Now on the other flank though, Jackie G is back from injury. It
Hey,
seems,
your favorite.
man. If I don't want to be harsh on him because he's only just come back into the rotation, obviously, but
Mm,
man, he's got a lot of catching up to do because this team is flying at the moment.
mm,
And
mm.
I will be honest, when like the few minutes he was on in the first half, he was just as sideways as ever. And I think like last season, it was it was annoying to see, right? When he would like slow down plays and things like that. But because of the City way of playing, it's sort of masked into, they massage the ball around and stuff like that. But now when there's an outlet like Haaland, it's even more obvious when he slows down the play and turns around, right? And he doesn't make direct through passes. So I think if he doesn't sort of get up to speed and adapt his game, this season, I think it's going to be even harder for him to remain in the starting lineup because it's actually going to take away from how effective the team was. Whereas last season it wasn't. It maybe just slowed them down a little bit, but at the end of the day, it still rolled forward. Whereas now you can't be passing up, chip through balls over the top to Haaland. You can't be passing up fired quick crossfield balls over to Foden because you've got the outlet of Haaland running through. So this season is definitely not the season where you want to be known as the guy going backwards and turning sideways all the time.
100%. Yeah, look, he's just come back from injury, so it might take him a moment or two. But I mean, if he's doing the same thing as he was last season, he'll be cast away because there's less room for him to hide now. You don't have Sterling behind to say, oh, he's taking my minutes. You don't have Gabriel Jesus to do the same as well. So I mean, it's kind of might make or break at this stage. Like, if I think if he has a similar season to what he did last year, I think the scrutiny and intensity of the the scrutiny of his performance and numbers will intensify, and I think you may have to start calling him a flop if you haven't already. If we see another bust season like last season, so look, keep an eye out on him. But look, like you said, man, the team's playing. It's the later.
I got a question for you though, right? His game is tucking inside and cutting in, right? Isn't it like it's just not conducive to what they need at the moment? You know what I mean? Like. What you need is a winger that's comfortable to stay out wide and cross balls into Haaland, or at least stay out wide to keep the fullback out there and get space open for Haaland. Whereas before it made sense, he'd tuck in and he'd connect with all the other players and they'd play a million 1-2s in front of the box. Fair enough, but like now you almost need a guy that locks up into the wing.
I think he's got the skill set to do both. I think he can. He looks like the type of when they bought him, he looks like the type of guy to mold into that type of player where he can do both, where he can hug out wide and then tuck in, and then or sit close and stay tight and make the 1-2s. I think he doesn't have the technical skill of someone like Bernardo Silva that's able to dribble forward and take on players and the niftiness and craftiness of him. But he does have that type of skill. He just needs to maybe refine his confidence and his I guess his passion maybe for the game, or come back to full fitness, whatever it is. And he'll be able to do something similar to where Bernardo picks up the ball, kind of takes on 1-2, moves it along.
The thing is, right? Like I think it's even stuff like without the ball. Like I'm just trying to picture a world where Jack Grealish is just out there hugging the touchline. Like I've never seen him really do that. Like you know what I mean? Like when is he ever like I'm gonna go stand way out there with the fullback, and wait for a switch? Like he doesn't really have that game at the moment. And I'm not saying he's not capable of it. He's obviously got the skill set to do it. It's just standing in another spot of the field. It's nothing too hard. I'm just saying I haven't seen him do it. And if Pep's trying to get him to understand that, and Man is still picking up the ball practically, in the left center mid position more than he is in the left wing position, then like no matter how much more intensity he plays with, no matter how much more he wants it, if he's still standing in the wrong part of the field, it's not going to change anything. So that's what I'm curious about. Unless they figure something out where it's like he tucks in and Haaland runs into the corner, the space that he leaves behind him, or something like that, where it's some advanced positional football shit. But either way, it's a long leap away from where we are at the moment, where he's missed a sideways pass.
Huge ways to go.
Like sideways passing to where we're talking about him being is leaps and bounds football IQ wise and tactically than where he's at the moment. He's got the skill set to do it, but we need to see him do it. I need to see practical application of that sort of skill set. Now, let's move on to. There's a couple good games here, but let's go to PSG Juve. Right, so the drama seems to have settled a little bit, right? There's some off-field stuff, some rumors going around at the moment, right?
Mbappe could be cursed.
Mbappe could be cursed, right? But nothing that's like seemingly spilled into like legitimate, issues like they did in that was it the first game of the season or second game of the season,
Uh,
where Mbappe was
yeah,
like
yeah,
taking
yeah. I
his
think
water
that might
break separately, and
yeah,
yeah,
second. It may
yeah.
have been the second game, I think.
So we haven't seen any cracks like that, which personally, that's all you can. That's all you need. Like, I don't care if they're not friends. I don't care if they're not going out for drinks afterwards together. I don't care if they're not playing FIFA together. Like, doesn't bother me. As long as they can keep it together and be amicable on the field and not let it interrupt their play, then that's fine. And that's seemingly so far they've held it together.
For
And
sure.
they look dangerous. It's just, they switched off a little bit towards the end, which is a bit strange.
Yeah, but yeah, 100%. I think it seems to have the tensions have calmed down. I guess maybe they've been whipped in by the president and the coach to get their shit together.
Yeah,
But yeah, that trio now up top with a functioning midfield behind them and the young legs to do the pressing behind them
yeah,
and kind of you know make up for their lack of direct pressing at the
yeah,
front. I mean, it just
yeah.
shows. I mean, it goes
Ne-
to show.
Ne- I think Neymar, to me anyways, he's breaking the what's it called, the stereotype for me from him,
Hmm.
because he's been pressing a lot this season.
Yeah,
And
he's
I don't
he's
know if it's
looking
World
good.
Cup year, but he's pressing a lot. Like,
Mm.
Messi is still the same. He's not doing really a whole lot. Mbappe every now and then he turns it on, but I think it's just more for show than it actually is legitimate, commitment to pressing. Neymar, on the other hand, he tends to be the one that Vitinha and Verratti sort of press in behind. Like, he's the one that goes first, kind of like Firmino does for
Yeah,
Liverpool sometimes. So I don't know. I think he's really, really switched on this season. I think at this point in the season, he's the most informed player in the world, I think.
oh,
I
100%,
mean,
100%.
it's kind of
Regardless
obvious,
of that,
9 goals, 7 assists. It's
yeah, like
ridiculous,
I think
but
this is his best
yeah,
season. So, like in a long while, like a best start to the
yeah,
season. It could be his best season since um, maybe he joined PSG or ranked
yeah,
second. But yeah, he's on a different level. Like some of the passes they're pulling off and the 1-2s, and like this game was pretty much a showcase of Neymar's passing range.
yeah.
With just like what he's like, just his positioning, he's the 1-2s between him and Mbappe. Like
The
it's
flick
just
over the top,
yeah, all the
ridiculous.
flicks and all the assists, like the to set up Mbappe's first goal.
Yeah,
Great finish by Mbappe as well. Mbappe actually looks like everyone's been on his back. Sometimes rightfully, sometimes a bit, I think, harshly, given that
yeah.
he's had a turbulent off season and start to the season with all the rumors and the curses and everything. But I think he showed this game why he needs to be the one shooting a lot rather than passing. Because if you think about it, you've got Messi who plays like the hockey assist where he's the pass to the actual assist, and then you've got Neymar pulling up in positions with flicks and chips and shit to
Yeah,
get Mbappe onto the ball at full sprint. So I think it's justifiable to see Mbappe constantly shooting or shooting more because again, he is of the three of them, he is the guy that's
that's his
you
role.
know
That's his role.
that's his role. He's the shooter. He's the one that's going to be on the end of
Yeah,
these balls, running onto them, and he is the goal scorer. He's the striker. He's the through and
I
the
agree with
ultimate
you.
goal scorer of the three.
I agree with you that
Mm.
he should be selfish. He should be seeking his goals.
Yeah, yeah.
However, I think it's also, to me anyways, if he didn't have to be like that, if he could still score his goals without keeping
Mhm.
his head down all the time and still leaving enough unselfishness in his game to be able to look up and find Neymar when he's by himself in the box and things like this, he would
Mhm.
not only have the goals he'd have right now, he would have, because at the moment he's got 9 goals and 0 assists, right? If he had the if he had 8 goals or 7 goals and 4 assists, I think he'd be better off for it. I
Yeah,
understand his role is
100%.
the goal scorer, right? But if he wants to be the best player in the world, you can't just play a role.
Yeah,
You gotta do more than that. You gotta
yeah, and
ascend past that.
yeah.
And that's why, and another thing as well, I think something that's gonna hold him back is his ego, because he's gonna see Neymar start to get, because it's not just me and you talking about Neymar having a good season. Everyone's gonna be talking about that. That's gonna come more and more. And then he's going to feel more and more reason to score goals, because he's going to go, well, hold on. I can't be second fiddle to Neymar. You know what I mean? So that's
Mm.
going to play in as well. And I think that's going to push him to be more and more selfish throughout the season. And I'm curious to see, because I think that's a given. That will happen, I think. Mbappe will get more and more selfish as the season goes on, especially in the Ligue 1, as they get further and further away from competition and winning matters less and his stats matter more. I think that will happen. I'm curious to see how Neymar will react, right? Because we're already seeing, like, he gave him a massive stare after that denied opportunity against Juve. So like, I'm curious to see how that will play out. Is Neymar gonna flip out because it's like, hey, bro, this is my Ballon d'Or year. Don't fuck it up for me. You know what I mean? Is he gonna have that sort of reaction? Is he gonna be like, nope, for the greater good, fuck it, I'll let him, have his cake and eat it too, sort of thing. As long as we get the UCL, I'll still come out of it with high honors. Who cares? I'm curious because I think this team is the only team this season that truly has some very odd team dynamics that we're not really sure how it's going to shake. Man United obviously does, but I'm talking about in the UCL, in the Big Boys tournament. These guys are the only ones where I feel like the interpersonal relationships of the players are going to be a massive impact on performances.
For sure.
Real Madrid, Liverpool, City. Who else is a competitor? Bayern Munich. All these other names that are competing for it. I think you're pretty much sure that there's not going to be any locker room beefs.
Yeah. I think that's the key to PSG's success this season. If Gaultier can can play the politics of it, essentially run the club, not just on the pitch. The pitch part, he's already got that down pat. I mean, and look, me and you could walk into PSG and do and get them scoring goals, and we'd look better than Poch did last season. So at this stage, that's not a hard task to get complete. It's just more so about keeping the product on the pitch good, and then the off the field stuff and all the egos and the craziness that is PSG at the moment. Let's be honest. I mean, their president is having the World Cup year. He's also the chief guy in UEFA's pocket fighting against the Super League. Not to mention the exhaustive resources they have and what seem infinite, yet and the constant FFP stuff that they seem to always avoid sanction for, and all that crap, alongside Neymar versus Mbappe, and then Mbappe becoming Lord Mayor of Paris when he signed that contract with PSG. So I mean, look, it's a crazy club, and I feel like it's like a throwback to the Galactico era.
It is.
But again, to bring the point closer, I think Gaultier will need to sort out the off the field stuff more so than on the field, because you can see clearly, like with this new midfield, Vitinha, Renato Sanch, again, variety of it. Obviously, he's not new, but that now that they've cleaned house, brought in a few guys, even like I'm actually really keen to see how Carlos Soler plays, because he was
same
with Valencia doing bits.
And he's a hustler, man. That guy runs. That guy runs
he's
constantly.
A baller too. He can play a pass, can take on a few players. Like, he's got a good skill set. So I'm keen to see how he fits in as well. And now that they've got rid of their deadwood, pretty much, like Kurzawa's gone, Icardi's gone, Guille is gone as well. Kehrer is gone. Like, most of the players that we thought were pretty deadwood or persona non grata have been ditched. So it's look, I think their success will definitely hinge on how they can keep their shit together off the field and how they can keep their egos in check. Because at this rate, the way they're playing, you could definitely say they're up there for UCL honors alongside City. It's just them two. I think right now have hit the ground running. It's just a matter of, I guess, two things of injury and the politics of it.
Thing is, it's a long season. That's every year. A long season every year. And we're early. It's first game. And there's a World Cup smack bang in the middle of these.
Right in the middle, yeah.
All right. So really, we might come back after the World Cup and go, this is the great reset, boys. Everything we've seen up until this point was Act 1. Forget about it.
Exactly.
It's like flipping a coin. This is an independent event, because if they're going to go through a World Cup, there might be injuries at the World Cup. There might be new performances. There's going to be purchases afterwards with the January transfer window. Like, a lot of things are going to happen, I feel like, and we may be looking at a completely different kettle of fish when we get around to it.
For sure. Yeah. No, you said, man, I feel like it's going to be part 1, scene 1, and then part 1, scene 2 after the World Cup. We're probably going to see a lot of different things shake down after the World Cup.
Yeah. All right, now let's. Real Madrid. I just want to touch on these guys really quickly because they played Celtic, where Saint Ange Postecoglou is coach of the mighty Celtic. Now, look, they lost 3-0, but if there's ever been a proud way to lose 3-0, it's probably this game. They created a shit ton of chances. They really took it to Real Madrid. They were scaring the hell out of them the first 20 minutes. The final product, like when I say final product, like literally the shot on goal at the end of every play, terrible. Fair enough, they don't have the quality for it, but they were creating chance after chance, really direct football. You love to see it, and it kind of just makes you think, well, makes you excited. What if he gets a team with a bit of talent? What if he gets a
Mm.
team where they actually know how to put away a goal and how to make use of the chances he helps them create? Would like to see it. Very
Mm.
good stuff for him, I think. I think
Mm.
if they just play like this through all 3 games or all 6 games, sorry, in the Champions League, even if they crash out in the group, I think they can hold their heads up high, and I think it's a good advertisement for Ange. I think he'll probably
Yeah.
get himself a nice job somewhere after a good run, because you can watch this game and you can really, this is the thing about, when it's a good coach, when you can watch a game and even in a loss, you know what they were going for,
Mm.
you feel
Mm.
like they got across their game plan. Yeah, maybe
Mm.
things didn't shake out and their finishing wasn't as good as it could have been and they didn't get the rub of the luck, but they created chances for themselves where when you're faced against opposition like Madrid and the disparity is so grand, just creating chances is something to be commended, and I think they did well.
Yeah, 100%. Look, if I've got a question now. If
Yeah,
you're Ange, right? You've
yeah,
been at Celtic for what, season and a bit now. You've won the
yeah,
title with them. You've revamped how they play. Now
yeah.
that Potter has gone to Chelsea, if Brighton comes knocking to you and says, "Hey, we'd like
Yeah.
to have you on board," what would you do? Would you join or would
I
you?
Man, the thing is, it's a tough one, because it's like, do you
Mm,
continue through the Champions League with Celtic because that's an experience of its own,
mm-hmm,
or do you go to Brighton? See, the thing is, it depends on his goals, right? If his goal is to coach a team in the highest level of football, then I suppose you'd stay at Celtic because you're in the Champions League and you're getting to do that.
mm,
If his goal is to be at a top club in a big league like the Premier League or one of the big boys, then you take the offer at Brighton. It depends what his end goal is, right? Because I think he's
mm-hmm.
got he's a bit spoiled for choice if he has that offer on the table at any point, right?
Yeah,
If I'm me personally, I would take the offer to Brighton, because isn't that what you're trying to do? Isn't what you're trying to do with Celtic in the Champions League to earn yourself a chance like that? So if the chance comes, you got to take it. Plus, they're in a good cushy spot, high up on the table at the moment. They're riding high. If this game is anything to see from it, they've probably got the type of squad that he could use, right? They seemingly, I wouldn't say they play the same sort of football, but you're asking them to play adventurous, gung ho attacking football.
yeah,
It's in that vein. You've got the players to do that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
is there going to be a better opportunity for him? Is the question. Probably not, right?
That's the thing. That was probably the same question for Potter. Like they've started. Brighton's been great so far this season. We've been seeing his plaudits for a little while now.
Yeah.
Potter as well. He's been looking good. He just fades out towards the end of the season. But you know, do you jump into Chelsea given that they're in a bit of a circus right now?
Cool. Yeah.
The Tuchel firing, the angry players, the new owners, the general circus that's going on there, and the changes. Do you jump ship? Which he
Yeah.
did, obviously. Now that we know, but it's a good question to see. I'd like to see Ange at Brighton
Oh,
just to
I'd love to.
just to push and see how far he can go,
Yeah.
and really test himself. But then again, I don't see a problem with staying with Celtic, because you get to play Champions League football, whether you get knocked out in the first round, in the
Yeah.
group stages. That's neither here nor there, because obviously you've got a big Titans like Real Madrid, like that's a defending champion. Like it's pretty difficult to do that. But if you're going to go out like this and you can beat, if you're going to play like this and against the rest of the teams in the group, you can eventually scrap a point there and you might progress, you might move on. Who knows? So, and
Yeah.
you can really build
100%.
a legacy. I'd say it's a bigger club in terms of, size and stature than Brighton, and they get to play.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
League.
Yeah, but it's if he does well at Brighton in the
Mm,
Premier League, he can earn himself,
for
not
sure.
not just his next job, but another 5-6 years in the top
A
flight league,
hundred percent, a
right?
hundred percent. Yeah, it's a bit
So
of a
yeah,
chicken
no,
and the egg type of
yeah.
situation.
Let's get to the final game here, and I have to
Mm.
actually hop off because my laptop's gonna die. Lol.
Oh no,
Um, oh no. The last one here for that I think was important to cover, which is Atleti versus Porto.
mate. The
What a game!
if you tuned in for the last 10 minutes of the game, you done yourself a good bit there. What a game at
Not,
the end!
not
Absolute
that.
chaos.
Not even the last 10 minutes, the extra 10 minutes of the
Yeah,
game.
the extra 10
Because
minutes. Yeah, the
the
last
extra
20
10 minutes.
minutes. The last 20
Yeah.
minutes of the game. No, it was that. I think it was it was a cagey affair prior to that. And I think, both teams were set up in a way to really just counter each other. It kind of
Yeah.
led to a stalemate.
Mm.
But I think what kind of started the fire on the field was Taremi. His first yellow was a pretty rough challenge, but
Yeah.
I could see why you would give a yellow. It'd be a bit harsh to give a red on that one, but the dive was hilarious because Witz was like, "Yeah, you did dive, bro." Like he's
Yeah.
telling him he's getting sent off, and I was like, "Oh, it looks pretty close," because there's the
Yeah.
camera,
The
when you.
first angle for sure. You're like, oh,
Oh
maybe
yeah,
it's a
100%.
pen. Maybe it's a
Yeah,
pen.
yeah. I was like, I'm sure someone left a trailing leg, but as soon as you get the view from behind the goal, clear as
Yeah.
day. An excellent call
Clear
by the
as
ref,
day.
because I think some refs may have shied away from giving yellow because I know there was, I forget if it was
Especially the second yellow.
the second. I think it was again. I think it was Brighton, Brighton versus Leicester, and I think it was McAllister. Might have been McAllister or Trossard. I can't remember who it was, but they dived and the ref gave a yellow. Oh no, they went down and then the ref said, "Oh, he dived," but he didn't give him a yellow. And I'm like, "Well, you can't give a dive and say it's a
And no
dive and not
yellow.
punish him. You
Stupid.
have to give him a yellow." And then fair plaudits to this ref. He gave him the
Yeah.
yellow, and he was the second yellow. So great
Sent
ref.
him off.
Finally, we have some great refing. Also,
Yeah. An immediate call too. Didn't wait for VAR,
yeah,
nothing. Just bang right
100%,
into it.
100%.
Gone.
And the offside, I like the new offside, the AI, whatever
The
thing.
graphic
The
thing.
graphic
Yeah.
from the
Much better.
semi-automated, whatever they call it, VAR, in the Champions League. Can't wait to see in the World Cup. I think this is a
Yeah.
lot better. Don't give me
Yeah.
those lines. Don't give me human
The
error.
lines are too
Nothing.
hard. It's too hard to see. Give me that. That's good. It's like a whole wall, and it's like you
Mhm.
can see how much they've crossed that wall. Much better.
Yeah.
Terrific stuff. And then essentially they get themselves. They go down 1-0 against Atletico Madrid. At what's it called? Porter gets a penalty,
That
squeezes
was
it in.
hilarious. Hermoso turns hero and villain in literally the space of 5 minutes. He flukes to be fair, he flukes the goal, it deflects
Yeah.
and chips the keeper. Like, I've never seen that happen.
Yeah.
I'm like,
And then
what
he
are the odds
volleyball.
to do that?
Yeah.
Literally fluke of the year. And then he does the stupidest thing in the most obvious handball in
Yeah.
the dying moments. And then Oblak, to top it off, Oblak gets a hand to it, slows the ball down. That's how much of a hand he got to it. And it still P rolls in.
Yeah, no, it was just smuggled it across the line, and then old mate Griezmann at the back stick from a flick on from Axel Witsel, he heads it into the goal by himself, but also narrowly escaping decapitation from Pepe.
Oh
It was
yeah, bro, that
crazy,
was
crazy,
crazy. When you see the replay
crazy.
from behind the goal again, or just like kind of to the side,
Just misses
Pepe's
it.
legs right here.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Alrighty, let's wrap it up on that. We're going to talk about Graham Potter, but I think we'll save it for the Premier League return next week. Thank you for watching. Thanks for listening. You can catch us on Instagram at @LastGoWinsPod_. Catch us on Twitter at LastGoWinsPod and Facebook at LastGoWinsPodcast. All glory be to Boza.
Arrivederci.